Oh boy, it's been a very long time coming. But hi, I'm Mugthief, and this is my definitive Baldur's Gate 3 companion tier list. It is the most objectively correct tier list if you're measuring objectivity on whatever I feel like. This tier list is not based on gameplay or anything like that. It's based on how much I like the characters, and basically on a personal level how much they resonate with me, both their story and their personalities. Keep in mind that this is actually a very subjective tier list, and I will make some of you mad. I will also be avoiding story spoilers as much as possible. Obviously, I'm going to be talking about all of the companions, so there's a couple of them that are not available straight away, and that might be a surprise for you, so if you don't know all of the companions in the game, stay away, I guess. But there's a ton of people still playing the game, a ton of people are buying it right now for the Steam sale, and it just released for Xbox. So I'm going to steer clear from spoilers because I don't want to take that away from anybody, and it's not really necessary. If you know, you know. It's that simple. To make the whole ordeal a little bit extra spicy, I have included a special rule for myself. I must place a character in each tier at a minimum. I cannot leave like the bottom tier empty. There needs to be someone in each tier, and I've done my best, and I'll explain as I go, to make some of the characters more divided than otherwise, because it's really easy if you like this game, which is my case, to end up going like, yeah, they're all S tier except like 2 of them, and then that's it, right? I want to keep it a little bit interesting. I want to give a big thank you to all of the people who watched my Baldur's Gate 3 content. If you haven't seen me in a while, here I am. I am forever indebted to you, and now that the channel is over 10,000 subscribers, a lot of that is thanks to you guys as well. So this is a much less produced, a much more fun video where I get to just talk about stuff, and hopefully it's something that you guys enjoy. So the tiers are an amazing character and I need them in my life here at the top. I would be in a group chat with them for characters that I would tolerate having more constant interactions with. I'm fine with them if we bump into each other, like at a party or something. Like, I'll have a conversation with them. More than a passing hello is like pushing it, and then finally I would cross the street to avoid them. And we're gonna start off with the characters you can't see here in the corner, and that's going to be Shadowheart, which I'm going to place in S tier. Shadowheart is an amazing character, and I need them in my life for many different reasons. For starters, I think that the core of Shadowheart's character is very interesting in that her conflict is rooted in religion. Now, I am a person that I don't really care for religion. I've made a decision at some point in my life that that's not something I really pursue very much, but I am fascinated by religions and by faith because it is such a huge part of the world. It's such an integral part of a lot of people's lives that dictates a lot of the decisions that they make and the ways that they live their lives. And having conflicts and characters that are very centered around religion is always very interesting to me. So the fact that that is her core conflict, that is a core thing to her character, are her religious beliefs, and how those interact with the story, how intertwined that is with the story, and how well written of a crisis of faith this is, but to epic proportions, right? And many of the most bombastic scenes, many of like the grandiose set pieces belong to Shadowheart. It's impossible to not like how that conflict is presented. Like I said, I'm a big nerd for religion, so I really like a lot of stuff that just focuses on it and explores it, and I really think that her story is a fantastic one of those, right? Additionally, it's that transformation. Her arc is very impactful, but very believable, at least to me, because of how it's grounded in that religious aspect. So the only real negative I can say is that some of the stuff regarding her that comes up very later on in the story were a little disappointing to me. I kind of rolled my eyes a bit at a couple of stuff. They were still very emotional and they still hit hard, and I really like the way that she changes because of those revelations, but the revelations themselves are kind of, But, I mean, yeah, Shadowheart is incredible. Next up is Minthara, which is going in A tier, I would be fine in a group chat with Minthara. And I think this is a character that a lot of people are still sleeping on, even though in the most recent patch, you now have a slightly convoluted way, but you do have a way to recruit Minthara even if you are doing a good playthrough. I think she's my favorite of the non-origin characters. I mean, technically, you know, she does have a tadpole, but, you know, that's a different story. Of the characters that you can't start as, Minthara is my favorite. There is an archetype here of character that is evil, but not because she is evil, but because of circumstances. And that's really common. It's played out, right? Just like, oh, wow. It turns out that evil people have reasons to be evil. It's not just because they're evil. Who would have guessed? Which, that portrayal in the totality of the game is a separate conversation, but for Minthara at least, she does that trope of like, well, actually, like there's reasons why. But they're really well done. And the way that she actually comes out to kind of communicate as a character that she just doesn't give up. She's a fighter, and she's going to keep on fighting. It doesn't matter how screwed up the circumstances get for her, or how misguided she is in what she is pursuing or what she's seeking refuge in to kind of keep going through her life. She's going to fight. And she's willing to understand some of the bad parts about herself or about the decisions she's made, but always with a fight. No matter what she's doing, she has like a very brave spirit to her of a fighter. And that shows in the way that even when she is at her most lost, if you have her as a companion, she's always moving forward. And I think that's a really well done character. I like Minthara. She's cool. Wyll. Wyll's actually going to go in A, above Minthara, but he's not going to go in S tier. I know Wyll is one of the characters, I think along with Gale, that a lot of people just kind of don't have that much of a connection with, but I think the character is really good. I think a lot of it is the performance. It's really well done, the way that he's really easy to transition from. All of the characters in this game, they kind of start off with that same vibe of like an uneasy alliance, right? Like we're in the same boat, but that doesn't mean I like you. But Wyll is definitely like the one that you can warm up to the fastest. Like the moment that you meet Wyll is like, oh, he's heroic. His backstory is that of a hero. He's doing all of these selfless things, and his entire storyline is very tightly like thread throughout the entire main storyline, which is something that I praise Baldur's Gate 3 a lot over, that it manages to make you care so much about your side quests and your companions because of how it weaves in all of their things into that main story. And Wyll is a great example of that, because right from the start all the way until the very end, he's very much related to what is happening. And I think that's awesome. And it makes his character compelling all the way through. So his arc has like the most natural progression of all the characters. It doesn't have as many peaks and valleys as others where there's like a big moment towards the end or in Act 2 or somewhere. His just continues all the way throughout, and he's a really cool character. He has a cool backstory. He comes with cool characters on board of his own story, let's say. And his conflict is a compelling one, just as much as his backstory is. So Wyll, I don't know, man. You also get like 20 points because you're a warlock, and that's awesome. Karlach. Oh man, this is actually the most difficult one for me when I was making this tier list. Because for me, when I think of Karlach, it's immediately an S tier. But in the spirit of keeping this tier list less top heavy, she's going to go in at the top of A tier. And that's really difficult for me because I think Karlach is my favorite character. For me, the way to describe Karlach is like a rebel with a cause in this case, but with a golden heart, right? Her intentions are always pure and positive with the people that are around her. Like if she loves you, she's going to do everything possible to find the best for you. And to me, that's really important because because to me, she's the character that I empathize the most with, which is something that I haven't seen as much, right? I see a lot of people talking about Shadowheart, a lot of people talking about Astarion, and how they see themselves reflected in them, but I see myself reflected in Karlach. And there's a lot of depth to her character that I think some people ignore. So yes, she is this bubbly, bright, fiery star that brings this positive energy into every room. But the twist is that she's actually like very conflicted within herself. She's very sad. She has a lot of her own problems that we won't discuss because of spoilers, right? But she's in a very tough situation. She has all of the reasons in the world to be very sad, to just not want to do anything. Like if I were in her situation, I wouldn't want to wake up. But despite that, she just goes out into the world and kind of focuses on being pragmatic and on pushing forward for solutions and making everything better for the people around her. It's this attitude of, well, if that's what needs to be done, let's get it done, that I love so much, because that's kind of how I am. That whatever is happening to me is always secondary, because I can do much more by focusing on other things than my own problems. And I think that's what she's doing. It's not that she's hiding her sadness or her trauma or her situation within her with all of that bubbly energy outside. It's not a mask. It's her understanding that the best that she can do with the hand she's been given is this. And even if it's painful, this is the best thing she can do. And that's not an easy thing to do. So I love her so much, and it was really hard for me to put her in A tier. Gale. I'm fine. Like, I'll have a conversation with Gale, but like nothing too deep. The Wizard of Waterdeep. So this is a very personal thing, but I think a lot of people who played BG3 on release are going to understand me. A lot of Gale was ruined for me because of like the very common bug that happened on release, where you said hello to Gale, you walked up to him and were like, "Hey there, Gale, how's it going?" And about 3 minutes later, I was like, "Well, you know, if you wanted to, we could go take a picnic. I know a place nearby, it's called Bonetown." You're like, "Whoa, Gale, I didn't even say I like you. I don't even like you yet. What are you doing?" And that really has a bigger impact than you imagine, because while Gale is the most selfless of all the people involved, he's also arguably like the sweetest character, like the most openly emotional and vulnerable of all of them right from the start. And he is really a hero. He's willing more than anybody else to sacrifice any of his personal goals, ambitions, and desires, anything, in the name of the greater good. He's also really desperate to go to Bonetown. And that's kind of not, like that left me really feeling weird, because that selflessness ended up being tinged a lot by, "Despite the fact that I love you with the passion of 1,000 suns, I will do what needs to be done." And you're like, this would have been really cool if it wasn't like the whole, like, passions of 1,000 suns. I've been trying to get rid of you the whole game, Gale. So if I divorce myself from that initial experience, I think Gale's a really good character. I would probably put him in A tier, but I need excuses to put characters in all of the tiers and have this be more varied. And also, it really does impact my perception of Gale that he's a horn dog, even though he's not anymore. But that's how I'll always remember him. So, sorry, Gale. Jaheira. And behind Gale, I was really disappointed in Jaheira, to be honest. One of the first things that happens is that if you know her from the previous games, you're like thinking, man, this is awesome. She's going to be ridiculously overpowered. And she's really not. Depending on like what you've done before you reach the point in the story where you get to be with her, she is really not all that. And like that just kind of messed with me of like, but you're like the legendary elven druid, the wise and weathered Jaheira. And you're really kind of a liability in combat. Let's be honest, Jaheira. What you doing there? And then a lot of her character is focused on her just being this archetype of the wise and weathered elf. And it is kind of fun and funny, and it has this role of like the person who knows what they're doing. They've been there before, right? They know what it is to face world-ending consequences. They know what it is to go on adventures of this magnitude. But I just kind of didn't really vibe with her attitude that much. And it's been a really long time since I played the original games. So I don't know if that's really faithful to how she was. But if it is, I think I just don't like Jaheira that much originally either. Like, she's an interesting character from what I remember. And I have read up on the games, even though I haven't gone back. I really don't have the time to like play through them again. But I don't know, just kind of fell a little flat for me. And I think that her involvement in the story is interesting enough, but it definitely felt often like a character that it was kept very much in mind, like more so than others. I'm not being literal here, but I hope it gets my point across. It was very calculated how the story and how certain beats play out if she wasn't there. So it made her feel less like crucial to everything. Oh boy. So this is going to be the most controversial one. So I'm not going to do it yet. Instead, I'm going to do Minsc. Because Minsc goes here. He's fine. He's funny. He is the comic relief. He just comes in a little bit way too late, right? He has very little screen time. The whole relationship that he has with Jaheira is cool. And he has that same sort of vibe of like, we've been here forever. We know what this is. And it's fun to have him around. Like, he is definitely one of the characters that made me laugh the most, especially relative to the amount of time you spend with them. But it kind of felt like he was a bit of a joke, and that's it. Some of the attempts that are done at making him feel like more significant and have more of a backstory with his relationship with Jaheira and how that is affected from the adventures that they've gone on before is cool. But it didn't, like, at that point really in the story, you're so invested in everybody else that it's hard to kind of fit him in and be like, yeah, I care more about the mouse. So I'm going to put Lae'zel here because Lae'zel goes in S tier. So Lae'zel is the coolest character in this game. They're not my favorite personally, but you saw this coming if you heard me talk about Shadowheart. A lot of what Lae'zel's story is how she is based in religion. It's really, really cool because it turns out that the Gith, the Githyanki, and the Githzerai are awesome. In all of the universes in fiction that have like tons of races and tons of stuff, factions around them, for me, the Gith are some of like the coolest that you can get. I absolutely love them as an idea. As a D&D nerd, I just love the concept of the Gith. I adore them, and I think how the story of the game is, with its emphasis on the Mind Flayers and the Githyanki, obviously, right? Like, Lae'zel is going to be such a crucial character because her race is really the most involved in this conflict, and she lives up to that. But her own personal role within that, and how she goes through her arc and the revelations that happen to her, and just how twisty and how fragile the relationship with her can be, it kept me tense and invested, and I cared for her, and she had me laughing the whole way through in a way that few characters in any video game have ever. And yes, a lot of the story and the race is what is really doing a lot of the heavy lifting here. But that's part of writing a great character. She has this archetype of, like, she plays things straight. She doesn't get a lot of, like, expressions and lingo and a lot of stuff that is obvious to other people. She's just completely oblivious to, right? Like, she's the definition of, she just comes in with a hammer for any job. But to put an example, that archetype of, like, I don't understand your expression, like, but in my country, that doesn't work that way, right? That's how you would see that in a sitcom. It's like, It's like some character that comes in that's a friend of somebody and he's Russian or something. And they make a joke or they say an expression and he's like, don't beat around the bush, Mikhail. And they're like, in Russia, we have no bush. Why would we beat it? And it's like, ha ha ha, so funny. Yes, Russian stereotype language barrier. I don't know. But with Lae'zel, that doesn't happen. It doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel stupid. It doesn't feel like she's meant to be the comic relief. It feels grounded in the fact that she's a Githyanki, and that's like a completely different, like that's something that's beyond the comprehension of so many people. Like, you're supposed to see this and be like, wait, what the hell? Man, Gith are weird and scary and creepy, and what's up with y'all, right? So it's just perfect for me. I love Lae'zel. Everything about the character, everything about the performance is just chef's kiss. So obviously, when I place Astarion, it's going to spoil who's going to stay in D tier. So I'm sorry to inform you guys that Halsin stays in D tier. I'm going to put Astarion in A tier. In B tier. This is really controversial because I have to give a lot of praise to the character. And please remember that this is an objective tier list. I know a lot of people already clicked off because Astarion is like everybody's favorite character. And that's fine. I'm not saying that he doesn't deserve to be anybody's favorite character. I really like the character. I think it's a really well-written character with a fantastic performance. But like many, to be honest. But this is a personal tier list. So I have to get a little bit personal about this character, much like I did with Karlach. I understand why Astarion is such an important character and so well written, why so many people see themselves represented in Astarion, why they see themselves in his conflict and the way he is and his arc and his evolution and his trauma. And I think it's really well done, and I don't think it could be done as well by taking out the parts that I don't like about the character, because it's really a very personal thing. It's just that I know people, I have known a lot of people that are like Astarion, and I don't like them. I don't like them, and they don't get the happy ending. They don't get the evolution that I wish they did. And as a person, like I said, like Karlach, right? I just want the best for everybody. I just want to help everyone. And this is an archetype of character and of real person that if you approach them with trying to help them, they will respond by biting you, which is what he does, right? Like from the very start, this is a character that tries to kill you multiple times. And that's like a line that I just don't cross, right? Even if you're nice, even if you're comprehensive, even if you're trying to reach out to them, they will try and murder you. And like I said, I think that's integral for the character to work, because that is how these people really are in real life. And I think that's like ballsy to write a character like that. And I'm very surprised that as a character, he's not more divisive, that so many people really love him. But of course, like the final conclusion of his entire character is very satisfying in the game. And he has a very deep and personal arc, probably like the deepest at an introspective level of all of the characters. But there's just this line that for me, I don't want crossed of, if I'm trying to help you, don't hate me. Don't make me want to try to help you. For like, if we're putting it into Baldur's Gate 3 perspectives, a couple of world-ending events and like 30 days of camping together for you to open up and stop wanting to murder me. So I think that he accomplishes the character that he's supposed to be. I think he's really well written, and I absolutely love how that transition happens. It just takes a little bit too long, and the start of it is just way too bumpy for me to ever get over it. Much like I said with Gale being excessively horny, I think that those first impressions for me with Astarion really never wore off, no matter what happened with him later on. And during my first playthrough of the game, I never did anything related to Astarion. I completed his questline because I completed all of them, but I never did anything. I forced myself to use him all throughout the second, and I enjoyed him more. I already knew where the story was going, so that helped me get over that hump and appreciate the writing and the character itself and all of his interactions when you're carrying him with you in the main party. But it's just not for me. It's a type of personality that it doesn't matter what the end would be. If it were in my life, I think I would cut them off for my own mental well-being, because I just can't deal with people that I really want the best for and want to help, and they just bite the hand that feeds, right? So spoilers, Halsin goes in D. Maybe this is the most controversial of all of my choices. Well, somebody needed to go in D. And like I spoke a lot about Astarion. I've spoken a lot about a lot of characters. To be honest, when I was writing this tier list, I even included a joke about how most of the characters in this game are just straight tsunderes, and I changed that in my little script notes for saying that it's an uneasy alliance at the start. But really, Shadowheart, Lae'zel, Karlach, Minthara, and Astarion are all tsunderes, which if you don't know what that is from anime, it's like very prickly at the start, like very aggressive outwards behavior that turns out to be really sweet later on once you get to know the character, but it takes a while for them to open up. And I think it's kind of relied very heavily upon in the game, but that's something that I'll talk more about when I do like a 4-hour in-depth analysis of all of Baldur's Gate 3, which I will do at some point, I'm sure. But aside from that, Halsin, on the contrary, incredibly simple character. He's like a hero. He's a hero right from the start. He's tall, he's handsome, he's sexy, he's powerful, he's a hero. He can turn into a bear, and he's a hero. And I just feel like his character, for as much importance as he actually has in the story, and how significant he can be to the outcomes of things, and how much of a like goody two-shoes and superhero he is, he just kind of feels like the most flat of all of the characters for me. And at least, like, I prefer the funny times of Minsc than the sexy times of Halsin. That might be sacrilege to some people, but this is my definitive tier list. You make your own. So yeah, this video's gone on for like way too long. I don't know how much it's going to take for me to edit, but I did want to say a couple of things here at the very end. If you want to stay around and listen to me talk a little bit more about like me and my personal experiences. This year has been really incredible for me. It's the year that I started the year off by saying that I was going to give my honest shot at being a content creator. And I knew that that meant that I was going to have to treat it like a job. And I already have a job, so that's not easy. And it has been a tremendous sacrifice that has been rewarded with success, but I've had a lot of help along the way. The two games that really made my career as a content creator like take off to actually have some level of success, as small as it may be, were Tears of the Kingdom and Baldur's Gate 3. So I feel like I'm not only always going to remember this game just by how much I love it, how much I've played it, how much I think it's an incredible game, but for the very deep impact that it has had on my actual life. It is one of the reasons that I just kept pursuing content creation and found some success in it. And I'm so thankful to it because it taught me that I can just talk about something that I love and people will find it entertaining, which is still mind-blowing to me, but it is apparently true. When I started talking about Baldur's Gate 3, not a lot of people were really talking about it. And I don't think that's luck. That's because I follow the gaming industry very closely and I knew that this game was going to be special. I managed to get like the most viewed TikTok of the game before release. I managed to get a couple of YouTube videos off the ground on the same premise of just talking about how more people should pay attention to the game. And I'll never forget the day that in my inbox, like 3 days before the release of Baldur's Gate 3, I received a review copy. I was a nothing creator. Like I had 2,000 subscribers or something like that. I had not to downplay anybody who has less than 2,000 subscribers. Keep grinding. Treat it like a job and you'll eventually get there. Hard work and diligence always pay off. But the moment that I got a review code for the game, I was like, not only is this a big deal, like because I get to do coverage, it's a big deal because there's somebody out there in the realm of who are making this game and managing it that have seen what I'm doing and they think that I should do more. Like they like what I'm doing. And that felt great to be seen by people making something that I find so special. The fact that they know to some degree that I made a thing, even if it was a 1.5-minute TikTok. They were like, wow, this really blew up. I like this guy. Yeah, like, send him a review code. I made somebody at a studio that made one of my favorite games of all time smile and think about my content for a second, and that means the world to me, because I got to give, even if it's just a little bit, back to the people who made it, and hopefully to the people who enjoyed it. I will continue to make content on the things I love, and eventually I will come back to Baldur's Gate 3 with a big analysis one day, but I wanted to do a big video just for fun here towards the end of the year, before embarking on whatever the next year can bring me and bring all of us. And this seemed like the really fun thing that I just wanted to do. Just remember all of these characters a little bit, since it's been like a 1.5 months since I've even opened Baldur's Gate 3, but every time I think about it, I smile. And yeah, what a ride. So thank you for watching all the way through, those of you who did. Make sure to leave a comment below. Tell me whatever you want. Tell me absolutely anything. I read all of my comments. Tell me who your favorite character is. Tell me what this game means to you. Tell me anything at all. And sneak in, somewhere in your comment, Heart of Gold. And I'll make sure to heart every comment that does that. As per usual, if you like the video, hit the like button. If you're new here and want to hear me talk about games in many other ways that I do, and other stuff, just that's what this channel is. Me talking about things that I love in hopefully smart, contagious, and entertaining ways. Make sure to subscribe. I've been Mugthief. Thank you so much for everything, and I'll see you very soon.